I'd like to make a toast. It was just 6 months after my mother's death. My sister, Marina announced, raising her glass as everyone at her housewarming party turned to look at her. Her eyes gleamed with that familiar hunger I'd seen countless times when she was about to steal the spotlight. To my wonderful marriage of 5 years with my beloved husband, David, our beautiful seaside villa, and she paused dramatically, her voice catching with rehearsed emotion, to Mom's memory. A respectful silence overtook the room. My heart was still aching with fresh grief at my mother's death. I raised my glass with trembling fingers, my throat tight as I quietly honored the woman who had shaped my entire world. Speaking of Mom, Marina continued, I have an announcement to make. My stomach knotted as I watched her pull out an envelope, slightly worn at the edges. The hairs on my neck stood up. Something in the way she glanced at me sent ice through my veins. Before she died, Mom gave me this letter, Marina declared, her voice ringing across the vaulted ceiling of her new mansion. She wanted me to have her beach house, that special place we all loved growing up. The room exploded with excited murmurs and congratulations. David clapped proudly, while my childhood friend Rachel shot me a confused look from across the room. She knew how deeply connected Mom and I had been. Because the venue for the housewarming party Marina invited me to was the seaside villa that my mother and I loved. The key was left with the landlord, and if any family member could borrow it, it would have been easy to enter. I sat frozen, my mind refusing to process her words. The beach house was Mom's first architectural masterpiece. It was where I'd spent nearly every weekend for years, preserving her legacy and finding peace in her creative space. Marina had barely visited, always complaining about poor cell reception and being trapped with nothing to do. Despite that, I wondered why it suddenly became hers. She shouldn't have been interested in this villa, or so I thought. As Marina waved the supposedly authentic document, I studied her perfectly composed face. Was my sister really this calculating? My mind raced wildly behind my forced smile. I quietly excused myself, claiming I needed the bathroom, and slipped away from the celebration. While leaning against the cool bathroom door, my chest tightened with disbelief. The letter Marina had flaunted made no sense. Mom's handwriting had grown increasingly shaky in her final months from rheumatoid arthritis, but the signature I glimpsed looked suspiciously fluid and confident. My phone vibrated with a text from Rachel, "You okay?" That was bizarre. Marina never even cared about the beach house. I texted back, "Need to check something in the basement. Can you cover for me? Say the department called with an emergency?" Within minutes, Rachel had smoothly made my excuses, and I slipped out through the garden doors while champagne flowed and everyone continued admiring Marina's supposed inheritance. Memories of my mother came flooding back to me on the stairs leading to the basement. 20 years ago, when my mother Zoe Hudson began to succeed as an architect, she lost her husband James to lung cancer. My sister had started avoiding weekend trips to the beach house since she became a middle school student. I remembered the last time Marina had been at the beach house with us. Then I remembered the night when Marina's cry came through the walls, "Why do you seem happier with Erica than with me?" I curled up under my blanket and pressed my ear to the wall. "You two are different people, Marina?" Mother answered quietly. "That doesn't mean I love you differently." "But you spend hours sketching with her," Marina retorted. "You never praised anything I accomplished." "You're very successful, Marina," Mother said, in a tired voice. "But I know you don't need me, so I spend time with Erica. You've always been independent and strong, like your father." After a long silence, Marina said in a voice so small it was barely audible, "Sometimes I want to be weak too." I remembered that a week after that conversation, Marina moved into her college dormitory and rarely came home. When Marina did return, conversations with Mother were mostly formal, and there was always a competitive light in her eyes. Thinking about these things, my hands trembled as I arrived at my apartment and took out the envelope Mother had given me. It was her signature cream stationery, worn soft at the edges, still carrying the faint scent of her perfume. Mother had handed it to me. "Don't open this until you need to know the truth," she had whispered, her eyes crinkling with that knowing look that suggested she anticipated everything. Inside I found several carefully folded documents, a sealed envelope with my name in her distinctive handwriting, and a small brass key to her architectural drafting desk at the beach house. I unfolded the top document and gasped. It was exactly as I remembered, a notarized deed transferring ownership of the beach house to me, dated 6 months ago. Beside it lay a letter in Mom's unmistakably tremulous handwriting. "My dearest Erica," it began. "By the time you read this, I'll likely be gone. I've decided to give you the beach house while I'm still alive to avoid complications. You're the only one who truly cherished this place. The way I did. Your sister never showed interest except when needing an impressive backdrop for her social media posts." Tears scorched my cheeks as I continued reading. "I know your sister might contest this, which is why I've had everything properly notarized and filed. There's a copy with my attorney, Karen Wilson. The beach house is legally yours. This isn't part of my will or estate. I trust you to honor my wishes and sell it as I've indicated." I slumped back against my threadbare couch, my blood boiling. Marina had blatantly lied. She'd fabricated that document knowing full well Mom had already transferred the property to me. The sheer audacity took my breath away. My phone erupted with messages my Uncle Bob asking where I'd gone and Marina's particularly stinging text, "Nice disappearing act, Miss Smartass. Don't worry, you can still visit the beach house if you ask nicely." Something snapped inside me. This wouldn't be settled through texts or calls. This demanded direct confrontation. I gathered the documents with shaking hands, carefully returned them to the envelope, and checked the time. Marina's grand celebration would continue for hours. I splashed cold water on my flushed face, took 3 deep breaths, and grabbed my car keys. The truth couldn't wait another minute. The drive back to Marina's mansion gave me precious minutes to compose myself. I wouldn't create a scene that wasn't my nature, and certainly not what Mom would have wanted. She always counseled, "When truth is on your side, Erica, let it speak softly. The truth shines brightest against the darkest lies." I parked a block away from the gleaming estate, Mom's envelope secure beside me. For a moment, I just sat there, heart pounding. I thought about all those weekends at the beach house grading papers on the deck while Mom sketched designs, the way her eyes lit up when I arrived. How we'd talk for hours about literature and architecture as waves crashed below. "What would you do, Mom?" I whispered, running my fingertips over the envelope's smooth surface. The answer flooded through me immediately, the right thing with dignity. I texted Rachel, "How many people are still there?" She replied instantly, "Just family now. Kate, the real estate agent, just arrived too. You coming back?" Perfect timing. I didn't want an audience for this. Taking the envelope, I walked the short distance to Marina's imposing front door. When I knocked, Marina herself answered, her expression shifting from surprise to suspicion. "Department emergency resolved so quickly?" she asked, her voice dripping with disbelief. "We need to talk, Marina," I said quietly, stepping past her into the foyer with its soaring ceilings. All eyes turned as I entered the living room. My Uncle Bob was scrutinizing what must have been Marina's document, while David was already discussing potential renovations with a slender woman who must have been Kate. The real estate agent? Rachel sat nervously in the corner, watching the unfolding scene with visible tension. "Erica's back," Uncle Bob announced, his voice betraying relief. "We were just discussing Marina's wonderful news about the beach house with Kate." "Actually," I said, placing Mom's envelope deliberately on the gleaming coffee table, "that's precisely what I needed to address." Marina's eyes locked onto the envelope, unmistakable recognition flashing across her perfectly composed face. "What's that?" she asked, though her tight expression revealed she already knew. "Something Mom left me," I explained, maintaining a steady voice despite my racing heart. "She made me promise not to open it until absolutely necessary." I looked directly into Marina's eyes. That moment has arrived. Before Marina could intervene, Uncle Bob leaned forward curiously. "What is it, Erica?" With deliberate movements, I opened the envelope and carefully removed the notarized deed and Mom's letter. 6 months ago, Mom legally transferred ownership of the beach house to me," I said, spreading the documents on the table for everyone to see. "It's already mine. It's not part of her estate or will." A shocked silence descended over the room. Uncle Bob's eyes widened while he picked up the deed, examining it closely. Marina stood motionless, her perfectly made-up face draining of color. "This is properly notarized," Uncle Bob confirmed, studying the document. "And this is unmistakably your mother's signature." "That's impossible," Marina finally sputtered, her composure cracking. "Mom gave me that letter. She wanted me to have the beach house." "May I see that letter again?" I asked, extending my hand toward my Uncle Bob. Placing the documents side by side, the difference was glaringly obvious. The handwriting on Marina's letter was a careful imitation, but lacked the distinctive tremor from Mom's arthritis. The signature was too controlled, too perfect. "Marina," Uncle Bob said slowly, his voice barely audible, "did you forge this letter?" Her silence hung in the air like a confession. "You don't understand," she finally burst out, voice trembling between defiance and panic. "It's not fair that she gets everything." "Everything?" I echoed, genuinely confused by her outburst. "What are you talking about?" "You were always Mom's favorite," Marina exploded, words tumbling out like she'd been holding them back for years. "Always at the beach house, always helping with her designs, always the perfect daughter with your literature and art. Some of us had to work in the real world." My Uncle Bob cleared his throat uncomfortably, clearly disturbed by this ugly turn. "Marina, regardless of your feelings, forging your mother's signature is extremely serious." "Let me see those, Kate." The real estate agent interjected professionally, reaching for both documents. She compared them with trained eyes, her expression shifting from professional interest to visible concern. "This is problematic." David slowly stood up, smoothing his expensive suit. "I think I need some air," he murmured, avoiding Marina's desperate glance as he took his phone and headed for the patio doors. "David, wait, it's not what you think." Marina called after him, but he was already gone, the glass door sliding shut with finality. A heavy silence blanketed the room. Rachel caught my eye and gave me a small, supportive nod. She had always seen through Marina's performance, even when others couldn't. "I don't understand," my Uncle Bob said finally, turning to Marina. "Why would you announce something like this without verifying it? We haven't even had the will reading yet." Marina's perfectly contoured face flushed with anger and humiliation. "I found out about the deed," she admitted, her manicured nails digging into her palm. "I was checking with Mom's attorney about her estate, and the beach house wasn't included because it had been previously arranged." She wouldn't elaborate due to confidentiality, but I knew exactly what that meant. I thought maybe Marina hesitated, her voice catching. "Thought what?" My Uncle Bob pressed. "Maybe Erica would just let me have it. Maybe for once everyone would believe my version instead of hers," Marina snapped, her voice rising sharply. "Maybe I could have something of Mom's that actually mattered." Her words hung in the air, revealing a jealousy far deeper than I'd realized. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Had she truly felt so excluded from Mom's world? "Marina," I said softly, "Mom invited you to the beach house countless times. You always said you were too busy with work." "Because I felt like an outsider," she fired back, eyes glistening. "By the time I realized what I was missing, it was too late. You two had your creative bubble, your architectural discussions, your artistic connection. There was no space for me." Uncle Bob shook his head, disappointment etched across his face. "That doesn't justify deceiving the entire family, Marina." She collapsed into a designer chair, all her polished confidence suddenly evaporated. "So what happens now?" she asked, staring at her reflection on the marble floor. "You've made your point, Erica. You win." "This isn't about winning," I said softly, thinking of Mom and what she would want in this moment. Despite Marina's deception, she was still my sister, and Mom had loved her too, in her own complex way. I reached back into the envelope and removed something I hadn't mentioned, a sealed letter with Marina's name on it, written in Mom's distinctive tremulous handwriting. "She left something for you too," I said, holding it out across the tension-filled space between us. Marina looked up, suspicion battling with hope in her perfectly lined eyes. "What is it?" "I honestly don't know," I admitted. "Mom made me promise not to open anything that wasn't addressed to me." After a moment's hesitation, Marina took the envelope and carefully broke the seal. As she read, her expression transformed from defensive to shocked, finally settling into something that looked remarkably like genuine remorse. "She knew," Marina whispered, her voice catching. "She knew I might try to claim the beach house." Uncle Bob moved to sit beside her. "What does it say?" Marina hesitated, then handed him the letter. "Read it," she said, her voice uncharacteristically small. "Everyone should hear it." Uncle Bob put on his reading glasses and began. "Dear Marina, if you're reading this, then Erica has opened my envelope, which means either I'm gone, or something has happened that forced her to reveal its contents. I've watched you grow from a determined little girl into a powerful woman. And I know your heart. You've always craved recognition and validation, perhaps in ways I failed to provide. But I also know when you feel overlooked, you sometimes make rash decisions that hurt others and ultimately yourself. The beach house has been transferred to Erica. This decision came after much reflection and love, not because I valued you less, but because Erica connected with the space in ways you never did. She understood what made it special. And I trust her to honor that spirit and to sell it as I've requested. What you need isn't property, Marina. It's purpose that goes beyond your success. I've enclosed a check for $15,000. Use it to create something meaningful, something that ignites your passion as architecture did for me. Perhaps the marketing initiative for sustainable design you mentioned last Thanksgiving. I hope someday you'll understand this isn't about favorites or fairness. It's about recognizing different paths for different souls. Erica will include you in the final decisions about the beach house, I have no doubt, but your future lies in building something uniquely yours. With love and hope, Mom. When Uncle Bob finished reading, the room was completely silent. Marina sat with her head bowed, the check trembling in her manicured hand. She saw right through me, she whispered, even from beyond the grave. My Uncle Bob gently squeezed Marina's shoulder. Your mother always understood people on a different level. Marina looked up at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. I'm sorry, Erica. I had absolutely no right to try and take away what was already yours. The words clearly cost her pride, but they rang with unexpected sincerity. I nodded, not yet ready to offer forgiveness, but acknowledging her apology. There's something else in the envelope, I said, reaching for it again. I pulled out a small sketchbook and opened it to reveal architectural drawings spanning years, Marina and I as children at the beach house, captured in Mom's beautiful charcoal sketches, building sandcastles together, collecting shells at sunrise. Marina showing remarkable attention to design even as a child. She kept this in her drafting desk, I explained, turning pages to show more recent sketches. She never stopped believing in your creative potential, Marina. My sister stared at the drawings, emotions washing across her typically controlled face. I really messed everything up, didn't I? Yes, I agreed honestly. But Mom obviously thought you could do better. The room fell quiet again, but it was a different silence, reflective rather than hostile, melancholy rather than angry. The evening had exposed years of unspoken resentments and complicated feelings none of us had fully confronted. Rachel, who had been watching silently, finally spoke. So what happens now? The question hung heavy in the air. What follows a moment of painful truth? How do you move forward after betrayal and revelation? I closed the envelope, feeling the weight of responsibility Mom had placed on me, not just for the beach house, but perhaps for healing our fractured family too. Now, I said quietly, we honor what Mom wanted for both of us. The gathering dispersed shortly after. Uncle Bob left with concerned glances at Marina, clearly torn between disappointment in her actions and worry for her well-being. Rachel gave me a quick hug before heading out, whispering, "I'll call you tomorrow." Then it was just Marina and me in her sprawling new home. The celebratory atmosphere completely evaporated. Marina moved through her designer kitchen mechanically, pouring wine neither of us really wanted. The silence between us felt heavy with all the years of competition and misunderstanding. I didn't plan it, she said finally, setting a crystal glass before me. The forgery, I mean. When I discovered the deed, I was angry, hurt. I created that document that same night, not seriously thinking I'd use it. Then why did you? I asked, cradling the crystal wine glass between my trembling fingers. Marina stared into the deep red liquid as if searching for courage. When everyone was here tonight celebrating our anniversary in this house, I craved something more, something truly significant to announce. It just tumbled out. She looked up, her carefully constructed facade cracking to reveal raw vulnerability. I've always envied your connection with Mom, how you understood her creative visions when all I could see was the business potential. You could have shared that connection, I said softly, my anger giving way to a dull ache. She desperately wanted that. I see that now, Marina admitted, her voice barely audible. But I was too ambitious, too focused on my career to recognize what I was missing. She hesitated before asking, "What will you do with the beach house?" "I'm going to sell it, like she wanted," I said quietly. "It needs some work, but Kate thinks its architectural significance will attract the right buyer." Marina nodded, surprising me with her acceptance. "That's appropriate. Someone who appreciates what Mom created should have it." I studied my sister, this familiar stranger I'd grown up alongside but never truly understood. "You'll be part of the process, you know, if you want to be." Her eyes, with perfectly applied mascara, widened slightly. "Even after what I did?" "The beach house was meant to bring family together, not drive us further apart," I said, echoing what I believed Mom would have wanted. "That doesn't mean I'm not still hurt, or that I fully trust you right now. But the door remains open." Marina seemed to understand what it was. "Thank you." We sat in silence, sipping wine that had lost its appeal. The night had been emotionally draining, and there remained much to process. "I should go," I said finally, standing up. "It's been an overwhelming evening." Marina walked me to the door. Before I left, she asked, "Do you think Mom anticipated this? The confrontation over the beach house?" I thought about Mom's careful preparations, the notarized deed, the separate letters, her instructions about when to open the envelope. "I think she hoped it wouldn't happen," I answered honestly. "But she was prepared if it did." Marina shook her head, a hint of respect in her smile. "She always saw 3 moves ahead of everyone." "That she did," I agreed. As I drove home, Mom's envelope secure beside me, a curious mixture of emotions washed over me: sadness for tonight's painful revelations, relief that the truth had emerged, and a fragile hope that perhaps this could mark a turning point for Marina and me. The beach house keys felt heavy in my pocket, not just the weight of the metal, but the burden of responsibility and memory that came with it. Mom had entrusted me with something precious, and I intended to honor her wishes by finding the right buyer. Yet perhaps there was space for Marina in this final chapter, if she was willing to meet me halfway. Tomorrow, I decided, I would drive to the beach house, meet Kate the real estate agent, sit on the deck watching waves crash against the shore, and perhaps feel Mom's creative spirit guiding us toward healing even in her absence. The beach house looked exactly as I remembered: weathered blue clapboard, pristine white trim, and the expansive deck that wrapped around 3 sides capturing different views of the ocean. As I pulled into the sandy driveway, morning sunlight sparkled on the water, creating a shimmering path across the waves that seemed to welcome me home. I sat in my car momentarily, taking it all in. This property was now mine to steward, not merely a structure or real estate, but a sanctuary filled with memories and whispers of creative inspiration. I could almost see Mom at her drafting table, pencil tucked behind her ear as she sketched new designs, the ocean breeze ruffling her hair. The unique brass key turned in the lock with familiar resistance. You had to lift it slightly while turning. An architectural quirk Mom refused to fix, because she believed it kept the property developers away. Inside, everything remained untouched: architectural journals stacked on the coffee table, drawing supplies organized meticulously in the built-in shelves, the faint scent of her perfume lingering despite her absence. I moved through the space slowly, fingertips trailing along the custom furniture she'd designed herself. The stillness felt comforting rather than empty, as if the house itself was breathing softly, waiting to see what would happen next. My phone vibrated: a text from Rachel. "How's the beach house?" Your Uncle Bob called this morning. Marina's a complete mess. I replied, house is perfect. Still processing everything with Marina. Another message followed immediately. She's been calling everyone trying to explain herself. Your Uncle Bob's still pretty shaken up. No surprise there. The aftermath of last night's confrontation would take time to resolve. Trust, once shattered, couldn't be restored overnight. Setting my phone aside, I walked to the big windows that reached floor to ceiling, overlooking the ocean. The waves crashed rhythmically against the shore, constant and unchanging despite our human dramas. I'm here, Mom, I whispered to the empty room. I'll honor what you wanted, I promise. 3 weeks passed before Marina reached out to me. Her text was simple, can we talk? At the beach house before the closing? I deliberated for a full day before responding with a time and date. Part of me wasn't ready to share this sacred space with her yet, but Mom's voice echoed in my thoughts. Holding on to hurt only hardens your heart, Erica. Sometimes forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. When Marina's luxury SUV pulled up that Saturday, I was sitting on the deck, grading papers while the ocean breeze ruffled my hair. She approached cautiously, looking more authentically subdued than I'd seen her in years. This place is still so beautiful, she said, gazing out at the waves. That's why we found the perfect buyer, I replied, motioning to the chair across from me. She sat down, manicured fingers tapping nervously against her designer jeans. I've been rehearsing what to say for weeks, but everything sounds hollow. Say it anyway, I suggested, my tone neutral but not cold. Marina took a deep breath. I'm truly sorry. Not just for the forgery, but for everything, for resenting your connection with Mom, for envying your creative bond when I should have been examining my own priorities. I studied her face, searching for sincerity beneath the perfect makeup. The Marina I knew expertly crafted what people wanted to hear when it served her ambitions. Why did you really do it? I asked quietly. The truth, Marina. She gazed out at the ocean, unusually silent before answering. I thought if I had the beach house, it would somehow compensate for all the time I never spent here, like I could purchase back those moments I missed. Her voice cracked slightly. Ridiculous, right? There was an unexpected vulnerability in her admission that felt genuine, not an excuse, just an acknowledgement of flawed thinking. I used the money, she said suddenly. Mom's check. For what? I started a scholarship fund for sustainable architecture, the one Mom was always encouraging me to support. She smiled ruefully. Used my marketing connections to get it noticed. She was right. It feels meaningful, creating something that honors her vision. It was a small thing, but significant coming from Marina, who had always measured value in dollars and status. She would have loved that, I said softly. We sat in comfortable silence, listening to waves crashing against the shore and seagulls calling overhead. It was the same soothing soundtrack that had accompanied countless creative discussions between Mom and me over the years. I have something to show you, I said finally, standing up. Marina followed me into Mom's studio, where her vintage drafting table stood in the corner, bathed in sea-scattered light. I used the brass key from the envelope to unlock it, revealing meticulously organized compartments filled with sketches, letters, and trinkets. Mom saved everything, I explained, pulling out a folder marked Marina. Inside were clippings of Marina's business award ceremony, photos from her MBA graduation, and even a printout of her executive promotion announcement. She was proud of you, I said, my voice trembling slightly. She just expressed it differently than you needed. Marina's fingers trembled as she flipped through the collection. God, I had no idea she tracked all this. There's a folder for everyone, I explained. Her inspiration notebook, she called it. Marina looked up, eyes watering. I really screwed everything up, didn't I? Yes, I admitted, keeping it real. But Mom believed in fresh starts. So do I. I pulled out the realtor's paperwork. Kate's listing the house next week. I'm thinking about using Mom's designs to build something new for all of us. A smile flickered across her face. Really? This place was meant to bring family together, not tear us apart, I said. That's what Mom wanted. 1 year later, I stood at the construction site of the new place, carefully checking the survey lines in a manner worthy of architect Zoe Hudson's daughter. The beach house had been sold, and with those funds, Marina and I realized a new project Mother had envisioned, a place more like a meeting hall than a family vacation house. Located just a few miles inland from the coast, this property would serve as a quiet sanctuary throughout the years, with several small guest houses attached. Oh, there you are, Marina's voice echoed from behind me. I turned to see my sister crossing the lawn. Her face was now softer than before, with less tension. Marina and David's marriage had collapsed after the incident following Mother's funeral. Marina, who was completely exhausted after the divorce, having lost everything, began to explore her creative side that she had always avoided, using the check she got from our mother. She continued with her marketing company, but now specialized in sustainable architecture projects. For the first time, she had found harmony between her business acumen and Mother's creative legacy. Oh, that's right, Marina said. Uncle Bob called. Is it okay if we invite him for dinner this weekend? I smiled. Of course. This place exists for that purpose. We stood side by side on the deck, gazing at the mountains stretching beyond the lake. I think Mother had planned this, Marina said. All of this. I nodded. She knew us well, better than we even realize. You know, Marina said, gazing at the sea. Mother entrusted the family to you. What do you mean? You didn't just inherit property, she turned back. You inherited Mother's vision, keeping our family connected to what truly matters. As the sun melted into the horizon, painting golden reflections on the waves, I realized that Mother had given me more than real estate. She had offered an opportunity to heal old wounds with my sister, wounds that had nearly been lost to ambition and pride, and to build new bonds.